Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Audible. If you sign up with our link, audibletrial.com/RRBG, you can get a free 30-day trial of the service, and you get a free audiobook. They have over 180,000 books that you can choose from. One of my personal favorites being Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna. Seriously, one of the greatest books ever written. You should check it out. This podcast is also brought to you by Blue Apron. If you go to my blog page, rockandrollbeerguy.wordpress.com, you'll find on the top of the page a link that says Blue Apron. Click there and you can use my link to get $30 off your first order. That's 3 free meals. It's a great way to get everything you need for a meal and not have to leave the house. So again, go to rockandrollbeerguy.wordpress.com and click where it says Blue Apron, and you'll see a link there to get $30 off your first order. In this episode, I talked to Chaney Crabb of the band Entheos. We talk about her music career and how she got an early start at the age of 13, her unique vocal techniques, her appreciation for whiskey, beer, and psychedelics. I had a great time talking to her, and I hope you enjoy. Cheers.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's just selling beer. I mean, it's not a difficult thing. It's like, hey, try this.
Okay, so that's what you do for a living? Do you brew, or what's your...
Well, I don't brew, but I work for a brewery. I'm their I guess, sales representative or brewery representative.
Awesome. That's sick.
Yeah, it's fun. I consider myself lucky to have that kind of a job. I've been through plenty of different shitty jobs.
Yeah. Haven't we?
Right. Well, yeah, some people.
I know, some people get really lucky, but yeah, I'm there with you, man.
Yeah. What do you have a day job, or is the band kind of full-time right now for you?
I do have a day job. I'm like a CNA, so I work with a quadriplegic lady.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's actually, I love doing it because she's a very good friend of mine. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be, in that field, but I don't know, I love it. I love working with her, so it's cool.
That's awesome, and
yeah.
It's rewarding in a sense of you're helping someone.
Oh, absolutely! It's what keeps me going to work. It's because it's like whenever I'm like, oh man, I'm sick or whatever. It's like, dude, she's in a wheelchair, going through way more than I could ever imagine. So. Makes it easy. Right.
Okay, welcome everyone to episode 11 of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast. Today I'm joined by Chaney Crabb. Am I saying that right?
Yo, yeah, perfect.
Awesome. That's an interesting name. Do you mind if I ask where from?
My first name came from a motorcycle helmet company. My grandpa races, so he kind of pushed it on my mom. And so, yeah. Chaney. Crabb is an English name. So, yeah.
So, your family, I'm assuming, from England. Have you been there?
Oh, no. They're from the United States. I'm half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're very American.
Very American.
Yeah, I was born in Iowa, so.
Oh, right. Yeah, I had heard about that. I was meaning to ask you that since I heard a previous interview you did, and you mentioned that, when you were younger, some of the bands that were prevalent in that area, like Peoria and just, like Mudvayne and Slipknot and all that, they were really taking off.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Those were huge influences for me when I was a teenager because, I was surrounded by that stuff. They were coming from the Midwest, so that's what we were all into. Yeah.
So, what age did you more or less start wanting to become be in a band?
I can't remember a time in my life when I didn't want to be in a band. From the time I was small, I always wanted to do something in a band, whether it was singer. I played viola for a while. I play a little bit of guitar. I always wanted to be a drummer, but the actual screaming vocal thing came around when I was 13, I'd say.
That's insane.
Yeah, so I've kind of known for a while exactly what I wanted to do.
That's pretty great. I mean, not a lot of people get that opportunity. I mean, it took me forever. I still haven't figured it out, to be honest with you. I mean, I thought music was going to be my thing too, and I did it. I went and I did it for a long time, but times have changed, and now I'm doing something else, and it's equally as rewarding. But
totally. What do you play?
Well, I mean, I spent most of my youth singing in a band, singing and screaming.
Hell yeah.
And I do play guitar, and I play bass in another band called Vultures Are Wolves. But that's, both of those bands are kind of on hiatus right now. We're all living in different states and not really writing anything at the moment, but who knows what the future holds,
I know how hard that multiple state band thing can be. It's so tricky. I mean, it's been made easier with the internet, but it's still, there's no like getting in a room together and practicing like we all used to do in the olden days, So it can be tricky, man. Yeah. So
the guys in Entheos, are they all in different states as well, or?
Yeah, Naveen, our drummer, and I both live in Santa Cruz in California. Evan, our bass player, lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and Travis, who plays guitar, lives in Houston. So yeah, we're all over the country.
That's crazy, yeah. But, you guys make it work out, I'm assuming. Where do you have a hub where you practice? Like, everybody flies into one of those states to practice?
Usually it depends on where the tour is going to start. But usually it's Santa Cruz. We come to Santa Cruz to write music as well. We just finished a huge epic writing session for our second album out here. So this is kind of the main hub, but we've gone to Nashville a couple of times too. It just really depends.
Nashville's a fun town. A lot of music in that town.
God, I love Nashville. Yeah, I think I would live there if things were different in my life. It's just a really cool place.
Awesome. So I just realized that I introduced your name, but I didn't mention to people that are listening. You are the vocalist for the band Entheos?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Is that your first big band? Have you had other bands that came before?
Yeah, I was in a lot of local bands around Iowa, and I was in this band called Systems, which is the only band other than Entheos that I've been in since I moved to California about 6 years ago. But yeah, none of my bands ever really did anything outside of playing a couple of shows or writing. I've been on a couple of albums before Entheos, but this is really my first professional band, if you will. I don't know how to really describe it, but this is my first national touring band.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I was going to bring up to you, as a fellow, vocalist, and I know it's a little different for vocalists than it is for instrument players, but
absolutely.
Do you I feel that I would be intimidated being in a band with, Naveen and Evan and, super talented dudes, because I felt like that in my old band, the band that I was in for 10 years. I felt that the guys were way more talented than I was. I was just, kind of sneaking my way in there and screaming and, making it work.
Right, I know. It's wow, I decided to become a screamer, and somehow I'm in this band with incredible musicians. It's funny how that shit works out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but I've definitely felt a constant desire to up my game. Being around people who are so serious about what they do and so professional, and so they know everything about what they're doing, and they're really incredible. They've just inspired me more than anything. Playing with them has really made me into more of the vocalist that I want to be. And even right now, as I go in the studio tomorrow to start tracking vocals for our second album, and I'm just listening to these tracks over and over, holy shit, I've really got to step up to the plate on this one. But it's really healthy. I love being surrounded by people who are constantly
challenging you,
bringing out a better me. Yeah, exactly. It's a constant challenge. From the moment I joined this band, I was all right, I have to aspire to be as sick live as I possibly can. I've got to pull off all of my parts as perfectly as I can every night. And it's just, yeah, I think that I take myself more seriously being surrounded by them. So yeah.
I felt the same way, like I said. I landed in a band with some really talented dudes, and I felt that I didn't really do my part beforehand to, I never, they were playing guitar when they were 12. I started singing when I was 19, 20, I felt like I came late to the game. But it's always been in my family. Like, my grandfather was a famous old singer in Spain and all that, and my mom used to sing all the time.
Oh, wow.
But, it was in my family, but it was never something I pursued, until like
Totally.
until I was like 19, and I was at a local show, and my buddy's band kind of needed, like, their singer couldn't sing. His voice was all messed up or something from a cold, and I knew their songs, so they're like, hey, you want to do the songs? I'm like, yeah. And that was the first time.
Wait, so your first experience in being a vocalist was playing a show?
Yeah, I was playing
God. That sounds so scary to me. Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, it was a packed show, just and singing another person's songs, just that I was a fan of. I've been to all their local shows, and I learned their songs, and I just jumped up there, and it was fun. And that, when I saw the crowd reaction, and I saw after the set, people coming up to me like, dude, that was awesome, and like I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I got to do.
Yeah, totally. That's absolutely incredible, man. I can't even imagine that being my first experience doing vocals, but you obviously rose to the occasion.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. I'm glad I was able to pull it off. And I guess, like I said, it's in the blood. So
totally.
Yeah. I was going to say, so doing the type of screaming you're doing is pretty rigorous and pretty hard on your body. Do you pre-show? Do you do any kind of exercises, warm-ups? Do you kind of prevent yourself from doing certain things? Like, I've heard a lot of people talk about chocolate. They're like, I don't eat chocolate, or I don't do this, or I don't drink, or I don't, do you have your ritual, your routine?
I try to practice or warm up, if you will, for about 20 or 30 minutes before shows. I definitely don't get the chance to do it every single night. Sometimes you're just kind of tossed up on stage because of whatever circumstance arises. So I do warm up. I don't really refrain from drinking or anything, but I just naturally don't. Dairy is a thing that they tell you to not drink or eat, and I just naturally don't eat dairy or drink milk or anything like that. So yeah, warming up does definitely help, and I've also warmed down and been told about, how warming down can help prevent long-term things from happening to your voice. But really, I think it's all, or not all of it, but a lot of it is in technique and it, having a lot of experience in doing vocals and practicing every day or as much as you can when you're off the road to kind of maintain the voice. But no matter what, there are going to be nights when you just aren't like 100, or if you're sick and you lose your voice. Shit happens. My main concern is just really that I can be screaming still when I'm 50.
Right.
So I've kind of since I started doing this, I've been really focused on just proper technique. That's a huge, huge deal. And sometimes I see vocalists live and they'll be just totally blowing out their vocal cords, and I totally cringe, and I'm just like, man, you're not going to have a voice pretty soon if you keep using it that way. So yeah. That's the biggest.
It's a weird thing because it's such an important thing to have proper technique and protect your voice, but
totally.
But it also, some bands me growing up listening to Every Time I Die's first album or early Deftones albums, they were just going and
oh God, I know.
improper technique, just destroying themselves, and it did create more excitement for me as a listener. I know it was ruining their lives in the process, but as a fan, I was like, man, this is intense, and I definitely, I tried to mimic that in when I was growing up doing it, and I'd just push as hard as I could, and thankfully I didn't do any damage. I felt like I just strengthened the calluses that were there as the years progressed, instead of
totally, yeah,
instead of breaking it, And now doing the podcast, it's like a whole new thing for me where I'm talking for an hour and a half, 2 hours straight, And I've realized that by the end of it, I'm usually pretty hoarse. My voice is kind of not gone, but it's just kind of rough.
Yeah. Do you drink water like throughout the entire podcast too?
Yeah. I usually have about 2 or 3 drinks set up next to me. Like I'll have a big tall glass of water. I'll have some beer sometimes if it's a little bit later, or some coffee if it's early. You know, it all depends on the day.
Totally. I drink a lot of honey. Honey is like a huge go-to for me on the road. In the past, I've like taken honey on stage and just like guzzled it when I can in breaks or whatever. It really helps like lube up your throat and, you know, gets it working really well. So yeah, honey and water are like fantastic. And whiskey, of course.
Whiskey's the way. Yeah, no, honey definitely helps. I used it in the studio usually. Like if I know I'm going to have a full day of vocals, I'll bring in some honey, some ginger tea or whatever. Usually helps.
Yeah, totally.
Are you completely against clean singing? Like, is there any clean singing coming to the new album at all, or do you just want to stick to screaming?
You know, I mean, I get asked that so often, and I'm always like, you know, I have absolutely nothing against clean singing, and I will never ever rule it out for myself. I can't 100% say I highly doubt that there will be clean singing on this album. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some vocoder usage or stuff like that. We're going to be experimenting a lot. But yeah, I'm not against singing. A lot of my favorite bands, most of my favorite bands sing. So I think it has its time and place to add a really cool melodic element to the band. In my case, I work with who add a ton of melody and a ton of that type of stuff on their own. So yeah. I don't know. Sorry to not give you a very straight answer, but
no, it's fine.
I can't really. I have no idea. You know, I don't know what the future holds, and we're never going to write the same album twice ever. So, and maybe I'll sing in some other solo thing. I have no idea. So, but I would never rule it out.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny. It's a lot of bands that, you know, start off only screaming and then start evolving into the you know, more clean, and to the point where now they don't scream at all, like Opeth or
who are one of my favorite bands. Opeth.
Yeah, Opeth is great, and you know, it's funny that a lot of their older fans hate on them because of that. They're like, "Oh, you're not growling anymore. You know, it's all singing and clean." But you just gotta adapt and grow with the band and appreciate what they're doing. Like their newer stuff is fantastic. It's very traditional, classic, progressive rock, you know? Totally,
but it's still Opeth. I mean, Sorceress was like one of my favorite albums last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike me as not an Opeth album. So
for sure,
why the fuck not? You know?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get a date from Michael, or Mick, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Michael,
I think.
Yeah, we communicated via Twitter, and he agreed to do the podcast. So I know he's on the road soon, so maybe after that.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So going back on the screaming thing, so I've noticed that for me anyway, if I were in a band that was just solely screaming, so when I was doing Vultures Are Wolves and it was just bass, I was playing bass and just doing really low growls, like the most disgusting thing I could produce. I felt it was easier. Like I could do that all day, but having to switch back and forth between clean and screaming, that's where it gets tricky, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it can get tricky either way. It kind of depends on what you're doing as a screaming vocalist. I personally like to go, you know, between lows, highs, mid-range, yells, like all kinds of stuff during I don't really like to stick to one range, and I do find that switching between them can kind of take a toll on your voice, and, you know, my highs won't necessarily come out as well as my lows. But yeah, I've never sang and screamed on stage before, so I can't really speak to that. But I would imagine that that the screaming would kind of dry out your cleans a bit.
Yeah, it's rough. Like the band I was in, we would do a lot of that, going back and forth. So it was rough for me to, I would think about it too much, you know, and like, hey, I know that in a few minutes I'm going to have to hit this super high note.
Right.
And if I blow my voice right now with this low growl, you know, I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. So it would kind of affect the performance, you know, it would make me just tedious, or not tedious, I'm sorry, just I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It was just, I was worried about it until the moment came to do that note. And then a lot of the times I would hit it and it would be fine. But a lot of times I was so concerned with hitting it that I would just mess it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the problem with overthinking. I try not to get too ahead of myself when we're like in the middle of our set. Because the times that I have done that, I'll like miss a word or like forget where I am in a song or something, you know? So yeah, I feel you. That can really affect what you're going to do like 2 seconds from now.
Yeah. And your band is crazy, super technical, lots of time signature changes, off odd times, you know, and stuff like that. So I can imagine it being hard to keep up, you know, and trying not to, like you said, go ahead of yourself.
Yeah, it is definitely. Having a click track in my ears constantly it helps a lot. But yeah, it is tricky.
So you do use a click track in your ear. That's cool.
Yeah, I wear in-ears. I get click, I get drums and guitar and bass, and yeah, so I'm hearing everything pretty perfectly during our sets, luckily. When I was not wearing in-ears, that is incredibly tricky because you never know what your stage sound is going to be like. Every club is different. Mm-hmm. Most nights you do not hear yourself no matter what you do. So especially when you're playing in like a loud kind of chaotic metal band, it's really hard to hear yourself over that. And then you're screaming on top of it. So in-ears are kind of like a necessity for me now. I don't think that I would go back to playing without them if I had the choice.
That's awesome. I've never used them. For 10 years. It was just live sound, and it was like when I was younger, I did a lot of dumb shit that I probably shouldn't have done because it was such a chaotic experience for me, and just because the shows I was a big fan of Dillinger Escape Plan, so I would do crazy shit like that on stage. I would jump into pit or jump on a table or jump on a PA system, you know, and I couldn't hear anything. And as a result, I would either just drink a lot or, you know, people would give me random drugs. And at that time when I was young, I would experiment, you know, like, oh, here, take this. I'm like, what's that? There's like, oh, it's ginseng and vitamin C. I'm like, oh, cool. And mushrooms. I'm like, what? Oh my God. It's rough, you know, or like friends of mine would just drop LSD in my drink and without telling me, so I'll just drink, and then all of a sudden I'm mid-set tripping balls.
Holy shit, I couldn't imagine tripping while I was playing a set. That sounds just insane to me. Yeah, absolutely insane.
I've done it a handful of times. It's not I don't remember any of it. I don't remember it myself.
You can't speak to the experience, but
no, yeah, I don't know what happened. I know that people afterwards would say, "Yeah, dude, that was the best." It's like, yeah, well, I don't even know what I was doing, so cool. Muscle memory.
Totally.
Do you? I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but do you experiment with stuff like that? I mean, a lot of the type of music, the technical death metal bands and gent bands and stuff like that, do a lot of talking of existentialism and psychedelics and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if you're into that world as well.
I am. I've done my fair share of experimentation with psychedelics, and I love them, and I think that they're very valuable. And I wish that everyone could experience what it was like to have your mind kind of opened and expanded in that way. I'm also, I love marijuana. I'm an avid marijuana cannabis user.
Oh, yeah, that's why you live in California.
Oh, yes. I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Right.
But yeah. So I've definitely experimented, and I'm a fan.
Awesome. That's great. You know, I try to describe it to certain people that haven't done it as basically just imagine having a closet in your house that you just keep throwing shit into it when you're trying to clean up. Like guests are coming over, so you grab whatever's on the floor and you throw it in that closet. And you just keep doing that your whole life. And then one day you open it up and it's dusty and gross and it's a shed full of, you know, all your crap. And then you just clean it out. And that's what psychedelics do to you. Like, it cleans out all the crap, all the baggage and stuff that you're storing in your mind. That one time that your mom yelled at you a little bit too loud or, you know, like... Yeah,
that's actually a really good way to put it. I think that it has a great effect on you if there's anything that you're, like, carrying around that you that you may not know, that you may be subconsciously carrying around some kind of like, you know, just the things that we all store in the back of our mind or put in the back of our memory. Tripping can really help you examine those situations and accept and let go. And I think that it's very useful for things like that, for things like anxiety or depression or, you know, any human thing that we go through. Tripping can be really great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that we should, once we get marijuana approved in all the states as a legal, you know, medicinal thing, I think we need to start exploring the world of psilocybin mushrooms, because it's definitely helpful. I feel that anybody that's considering going to therapy, and it's nothing against therapy, it helps people, and some people need it. They need to go to a room and just talk to someone about themselves to feel better. But anybody that's considering any kind of psychological therapy should at least try it. And and mushrooms is one it's easier, because they're obviously, I would never suggest someone to go straight into LSD, because that is like throwing a baby in the ocean and like hoping it learns how to swim, you know?
Yeah.
It's nuts. But definitely, like mushrooms, you could take a small dose, and it doesn't last that long, and it definitely helps. I've done my Bill Hicks heroic doses of that before, and it's definitely changed the way I look at life completely. And I know I have my own issues to deal with, but I feel that I can deal with them on my own. I don't need to go to a psychologist, you know?
Totally. Have you ever, like, actually, so are you talking about microdosing? Like, you've taken such small amounts that it's just that you're not entering a trip. That's awesome. I've never used them that way. I've always taken enough to actually trip. But microdosing is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I've obviously when I first started, I would do the bigger doses, but once I got to a certain point, just a little bit here and there, and another thing that I learned to do, I went deep into the psychedelics experimentation and exploration, like traveling to different countries and
ayahuasca, everything.
Ayahuasca, I've gone to Peru.
Wow.
It's been crazy. So one of the things that I learned to do was teach myself how to release some of my own DMT that I produce naturally by choice. Just in bed, certain breathing technique.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like a meditation, more or less.
Yeah. Basically, you meditate. You start meditation, and you have a certain rhythm and pattern to your breathing.
Right.
That opens up that frequency for you. And I haven't done it in a while because it started getting a little crazy. Once your lucid dreams become almost as real life, things get a little fishy, Yeah. So that's where it could be dangerous for certain people. I could see that for sure. It's like alcohol, and here I am. I'm an alcohol salesperson, so. Right. But if you drink a lot, you're doing damage to your body physically, your liver and all that, but you're also endangering the lives of others around you, Yeah,
absolutely.
I've been a victim of one too many shots of tequila and getting very angry.
Yes, I've also been there, but it was with vodka.
Ah. Okay.
I've heard tequila just always sends me straight to like nausea and puking everywhere. And that's why I drink whiskey now. That's my drink of choice. Nice. Because it's a very cool, clean drunk. But yeah.
Now that we're on the subject of alcohol, so this is a beer podcast. At least I try to bring up beer in every episode. Are you into the craft beer at all?
I am into craft beer. I used to really hate beer before this whole craft wave came around. And I love craft beer. I like IPAs a lot. Really, I like all sorts of beer, and just depending on my mood. But yeah, I love going to breweries.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So you've been to like a brewery, and have you done any brewery tours?
I haven't done any tours, but Santa Cruz there are like a million breweries here, at one every block. So yeah, I've been to my fair share.
Do you have any locals that are your personal favorites that you go to more than once, or are you just exploring?
There's a place in downtown Santa Cruz called Pour, where you get a wristband. You walk in, you give them your debit card, and you get a wristband. And basically they have like 40 beers on tap. And you can go and you wave your wristband in front of this thing, and the light on the tap turns green, and you can basically pour yourself a 1 ounce, 4 ounce, or full 8 ounce glass of beer. And I absolutely love that place because I like to try a lot of different stuff, but sometimes I just really don't like the beer that I am trying, so I'll waste an entire, glass of beer.
Right.
And Pour kind of prevents. Pour is like the best brewery that I've ever been to, and I would love to go to many more of that type of place. They have a lot of like local stuff on tap, which is really cool.
I was going to say though, okay, so that's just a bar though. Like, do they make their own beer?
No, it's just a bar. They're not an actual brewery, I guess.
Okay.
So I kind of like walked beside the point, but that place rules. If it were a brewery, it would be my favorite, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's just cool. It's a cool concept for a spot.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and it's definitely something that it helps actually the industry in terms of bartending. When you go to certain bars that have a lot of taps, it's really frustrating for like people come up to you like, oh, what's that one? Can I try a little bit? And so you have to like go back and forth and give people these samples so they can try it before they buy it. And
right.
Here, this kind of just cuts out that nuisance. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So are there any breweries that you like, though? Like brands, like local ones? Like I'm trying to think who's down there in Santa Cruz.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, too. Hold on, I'm going to do a quick Google search.
Sure.
Seabright Brewery actually is like a really, really great brewery in Santa Cruz.
Nice.
I don't know if any is my absolute favorite. I don't think that any of my favorite beer comes from Santa Cruz, but there's a lot of really good stuff here.
Where does your favorite beer come from then? Like, if there's...
I really like Delirium.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great beer.
Yeah, Delirium is the best. So.
Yeah, it's light. It's strong. It's light. It's, got enough flavor.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of everything that I like all in one.
Very cool.
Very
cool. You should try checking out a brewery tour, just so you could see the process. And, one of the reasons I started the podcast is just the similarities between music and beer in every aspect that you don't really think about. For example, small breweries go through the same struggles as small bands that are trying to get their name out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to travel, you got to go to festivals across the country and kind of, peddle your wares and, sell yourself.
Right, you've got to like meet people, network, get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Get they're essentially both brands at the end of the day when you look at it from more of a business standpoint, if you will. So, yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and we've definitely entered the era of rock star brewers. Like, there are dudes that, if you're into craft beer, you're geeking out when you meet them. Like, Sam Calgione from Dogfish.
That's actually the exact same person I was just going to bring up. That guy, like, I don't know a ton about breweries, but I definitely know of that guy. I've seen like a whole expose on his work.
Yeah,
so.
He's one of the first innovators. He's been there from the beginning. He's been on TV. He's had his own shows. He's written books. The guy's a rock star, and people line up to just meet him and shake his hand and get an autograph. It's pretty crazy. And
I mean, when I start to think of it, I think that was truly probably the first like brewery that I ever really heard of. Outside of, the stuff that you can get in a grocery store. Dogfish was the first big name.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, there's Dogfish. Another one of the old school ones is Brooklyn, and that's another rock star brewer guy. Garrett Oliver, he's a big deal in the craft beer community. He's written many books. He's done seminars and stuff like that. It gets really deep,
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then you get the big festivals like the Great American Beer Fest. It's very much like an Ozfest, like you walk in, there's a giant wall of shirts, from each brewery, and you've got like signings and panels that people do. You go, it's crazy, you know?
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like God, what's the name of that huge 420, the High Times Festival or whatever in Denver?
Right.
Whatever they do on 420, you know. But yeah, that surprised me when I started like uncovering everything about that. Just the type of stuff that surrounds these like beer and pot, and it's insane to me.
Yeah, it's a culture, you know.
Total culture.
Yeah. Another similarity that I've noticed is for people that aren't into it, the people that aren't geeks or whatever, they kind of have the same reactions as, like, when I tell someone that there are different kinds of IPAs, some people are like, "What do you mean?" You know, like they don't get that, you know. And the same goes for music. Like I have one of my coworkers actually didn't know that there was different genres of metal.
Yeah. Well, most people don't. I mean.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, there's technical death, there's progressive, and he's like, "What? It just all sounds like loud noises and screaming."
I mean, to a lot of people, like, I don't know, Necrophagist and Slipknot are like in the same category. Not that they know who Necro is, but you know what I mean. It's like, right. Oh, you play metal like Metallica. Their minds are absolutely blown by the idea that there's a whole culture behind it.
Yeah, and like how you were mentioning with your vocal range, how you like to go from low growls to, you know, medium to highs. Like some people don't even recognize that. They're just like, "Oh, it's just screaming."
Oh, I know.
They don't understand that there's a range of screams that you can do and different notes that you can hit, you know? Or
that there's a technique behind it, or, you know, all of the small details that go into the whole picture.
For sure. You know, and it's funny to me, like, I love educating people. It's one of the things that I really enjoy. Like, I don't think I could ever be a teacher. I don't think I would have ever pursued that career, but just being able to show someone or have someone come up to me, which happens often, is like, "Hey man, so how do you scream?" And it's like, I don't even know how to teach you, but I would say, you know, try it every day, sing along to your favorite songs. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll like teach lessons and stuff, and you know, you can go over it with people and show people how you go about screaming or whatever else. But at the end of the day, it's all up to each person individually. Everyone's got a different thing going on and a different technique or whatever that works for them. So yeah, it's weird to teach vocal lessons or to have people ask you that question because it's multi-dimensional.
Yeah, for sure. So now that we're on that topic, I just thought of a funny question to ask you. What is the funniest band comparison that you've gotten? Like, for example, we've played shows in front of people that don't typically listen to metal, and they'll come up to us and be like, "Oh, you guys you remind me of that band Stained." And I'm like, "Are you kidding?"
For me, it's any female-fronted band that you could ever possibly think of, whether they sound anything like my band or not, that we get compared to those bands all the time, like Kitty or
oh my god,
OTEP or In This Moment, or I can't think of that. There's like this really popular Hailstorm.
Oh yeah.
Any band that a chick is in, we will get compared to.
You guys sound just like Butcher Babies.
Yeah, I've gotten that before. You'd be surprised how many times people have told me that. But yeah.
Well, I wanted to, now that we're talking about that too, so I don't want to touch on it too much because I know you've talked about it before, but I did get a few people reach out to me in terms of what kind of questions they wanted to ask you.
Oh, wow.
And almost everyone suggested the same question, which I thought was kind of lame because I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm sure she's gotten that before. But, like, so what's it like being a woman? You know, like, no, what's it like being a female in what's, you know, predominantly a boys' club in that sense, you know? And I know that you've mentioned that they respect you and they don't look down on you in that sense, but I can imagine it being a challenge.
You know, every time I get asked that question, my first kind of go-to thing is like, this is the only perspective I've ever had in a band. Mm-hmm. So all that I have is what I see happen around me. And everyone at this kind of stage in my life is respectful of me. And I don't know, I don't feel different being a woman in a band. Mm-hmm. It's always something that people are going to bring up because it's obvious. But yeah, I don't feel like I am treated differently, to be totally honest with you. Obviously, like, things will happen, like I'll walk into a venue and people mistake me for the merch girl every single day, or just stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, I think that a lot of people care more about the talent that they see you have, or like what you do. And I've been lucky enough that people are down to kind of overlook that I'm a chick. Mm-hmm. Or at least I feel. I mean, I'm sure that people talk shit or whatever, but I just kind of try not to pay attention to that type of stuff. So I just really don't feel different being a woman in a band, aside from like the obvious stuff, like that I have to like use an actual bathroom at night when we park the van. So I always like make sure we're parked by like a bathroom or a gas station. And, you know, it's like small details like that that really remind me that I am the girl.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know. Is that a good answer?
Yeah. Look, so here's the way I see it, because, you know, if this is all you know and this is what you've been your whole life, it really just shows your character, like who you are as a person. Because a lot of people, especially this day and age, and it doesn't have to be gender specific, just people are a little more sensitive these days, you know, based on, you know, so maybe it's because you're just focused on what you're doing. You're not paying attention to something that somebody else, you know, for example, that whole merch girl incident, another girl would probably freak out, you know, like, what do you mean? And, you know, like get in his face or something. And you have a strong enough character where you don't let it get to you. And that's good.
Well, I've always kind of acknowledged that other people have no idea what, you know, they don't know why I'm at the venue that day. And probably most of their experience with that is with the woman being not in the metal band. Mm-hmm. And that's okay with me. And I've just learned that, yeah, this is like one of the things that I'm going to have to explain. And it sucks, but I'm not willing to jeopardize who I am as a person, or my character, as you said, to like, I don't care to tear people down for not assuming that I'm in a band. I don't care.
Do you, another, you know, part of the question that I got was so you don't really get a lot of sexual harassment with fans or something? Because I mean, that's one thing that I feel everybody, you know, men and women, as long as you're doing your thing, it shouldn't be an issue. But a lot more dudes are out there hitting on girls than there are girls hitting on dudes.
That I mean, could possibly be true. I've seen a lot of my guy friends get hit on a lot as well. So yeah, there is like that occasional encounter, but no one has been totally so inappropriate to a level that I've needed to say anything at this point in my career or my life in music. No one has really stepped out of line in that way. You know, I'm lucky I have 3 guys around me who would probably kill someone who tried to sexually harass me. And, you know, all of my friends and the dudes in my band especially just kind of look out for me. And yeah, nothing has gone over the line with me. And I don't know, in my experience, people have been fairly respectful. So
that's good. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. On that topic, and not, you know, I'm not trying to be inappropriate or anything, but do you have a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, husband? I
do have a boyfriend.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that brings me to my question of how does he deal with jealousy in terms of that? Because I know it would be a little rough for me knowing that my girl's out and like touring the world, you know, and with I would have to, you know, look inward to get away from the jealousy or whatever. But is he, you know, okay and not jealous or respectful of what you do?
Well, in my case, my boyfriend happens to be the drummer of my band. So okay. Yeah. So Naveen is my boyfriend, and we've been together for 6 years, and he's he's not a jealous person.
Okay.
I mean, if someone, as I said before, stepped over the line, he would probably kick their ass, and as would the other guys in my band. But yeah, no, he's really cool with it all, and he totally understands, because obviously he's been touring his entire life. You know, he's been touring since he was 16 years old. So
right, he gets it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And this shows you how professional this podcast is and how much work I put in, like not knowing that you guys are together. Sorry.
Oh no, I don't care at all, dude.
I mean, I didn't really see that out. Like I did do some research. I did look up stuff, and I never saw anything of the sort. Except maybe like a couple pictures of you two guys together, like hanging out. But I figured that's because you were in the band, so.
Yeah. I've never actually been asked about it during an interview, so I've always kind of like been wondering if the question would ever come up. But yeah.
Well, a rock and roll beer guy first. Awesome.
Yeah. You're the first.
I'm the first. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of random questions. We're hitting like the 50-minute mark. I don't have a time limit, but I also don't want to hold you up too long. So, but
I'm talking to you, man. It's all good.
What would be your first record purchase?
My
what's the first album?
Albums when I was a child.
Yeah. What was the first CD or record you bought?
It was Christina Aguilera. I can't remember the name of that first album. I think it was like Message in a Bottle.
The Genie in a Bottle?
Yeah, is that the name of the album?
I don't know. I know that was a song.
Yeah, it's the album that had that on it. That was my first purchase ever, and I think it was from Kmart. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I remember it very well, actually.
Are you still a fan of Christina Aguilera's work?
Yeah, I mean, Christina Aguilera is like one of the best singers out there that's making it on the level that she is. That woman has a hell of a voice, and yeah, I'm definitely a fan.
Nice. Is that so? What other bands that are completely opposite to what you're doing? Like, what kind of pop stars or rock bands, or anything else that you're into that's someone would be like, what?
God, I don't know. I listened to this band called Air, who are like a French electro duo.
Oh yeah, Cherry Blossom Girl.
Exactly. Wow. I bring them up so much, and no one ever has any idea who I'm talking about. So yeah, Air is like my absolute shit. Fleetwood Mac. I love a lot of R&B stuff, like this girl called Kilo Quiche.
Oh, I've not heard of that.
The Internet. Yeah, I don't think anyone has heard of Kilo, but her album last year was my favorite album of the year. It's called Reflections in Real Time. So if anyone's into that, check it out. You won't be disappointed. The Internet, SZA, Machine Drum, Justice.
Justice, okay.
Yeah, have you heard Justice?
I have. I spent most of my time in Miami, and Miami's predominantly techno, dance, anything electronic. It's a big deal there. That's where they have the Winter Music Conference and Ultrafest and all that. So.
Yeah, Ultra.
Yeah, I used to go to that back in the day when it was $50 to get in all weekend. Now it's like $500.
Oh, fuck. I would never pay that much to get into a festival ever in my life. Power to them.
Yeah, no. I mean, when it was $50, it was fun because you go and I saw Prodigy and all those bands that were big in that time period, like Tiesto and stuff like that. I was never like a big fan, but just the whole experience. You're in this huge sea of people and on all kinds of drugs and yeah.
Right. Totally, yeah. I imagine that for $50, that would be absolutely amazing. But God, man, festival prices are just like, especially electronic festival prices are just fucking skyrocketing.
And it makes no sense considering that they're not carrying equipment, or at least not as much equipment as a full band.
They aren't, but they make a hell of a lot more money.
Right.
Than any band, So yeah, that's where the ticket prices come in, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. What was one of your first concerts, if you can remember them?
I think that my first concert was my first concert was Goo Goo Dolls and Fastball.
Jesus Christ. How did you end up in a technical death metal band?
I ask myself that every day.
So, Okay, so you grew up listening to, stuff like that. How did you get into that world? Like, I guess, you mentioned Mudvayne and all that, but even Mudvayne, ended up becoming a little more commercial.
Yeah, I mean, through school and stuff, my mom was never, like, deep into metal, but she always had, like, the Black Album around, so I always knew Metallica and, like, classic rock and all of that stuff, and then right when, like, System of a Down was getting popular, I really started getting into metal, so I kind of, like, started listening to that type of stuff and, like, Ozzy and Marilyn Manson and all of that shit, and then slowly graduated to, like, Slipknot and Mudvayne, and then it got heavier, and Chimera, and it kind of, like, got heavier as the years progressed.
Nice.
Yeah,
it was kind of the same for me. My father showed me back when I was younger, Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and he and I both discovered Metallica together. He wasn't too into the earlier stuff because it was too heavy for him, but he enjoyed the Black Album, for example. We would go play pool, and he would always put on, like, Wherever I May Roam, I think it was.
Yeah,
that was, like, his jam.
Hell yeah, Dad. That's not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I just started progressing, like, with Pantera, and then just slowly discovering heavier and heavier bands and punk rock, and getting into, like, the grindy hardcore. Like, I'm really into that, like Nails, Power Violence.
I fucking love Nails. I love Nails.
I'm in a predicament. They're playing here Saturday and Sunday, and they're both sold out, and I don't want to bother Leon or any of the dudes to kind of, hey, put me on the list, please.
I know that because last night someone said something on the internet about Nails playing in, like, Oregon, I think. So I was like, fuck, they're probably coming to the Bay Area pretty soon. And I checked last night, and they're like an hour away from me tonight, and I'm missing the show, and I'm incredibly bummed. But,
oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, but, next time.
You don't know any of the dudes in the band that you could call and maybe see if they'll...
I do not. I don't know anyone in Nails.
I mean, I had Leon on the podcast. I've met him before through Intronaut and everything, because he used to play in Intronaut. And
oh, shit. I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
Leon was one of the original members. Before David joined the band, he was in the band, and then he joined Nails afterwards. So.
Oh, nice. See, that's why. It's because I know Dave, and I just, I was like, this guy surely has been an Intronaut since the beginning, right? Because they all, they mold together so well, so beautifully, that I just figured he was original.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, I think the first album was when Leon was in, like, The Void. Anything after that was David. And like you said, it does they meld perfectly. Like, it makes sense, and I asked Leon about it too on the podcast. We were talking about, why he left, and it was just, it really wasn't his thing. He was more into Nails. Yeah,
I could see that. I mean, if you're into Nails, then you probably don't want to play an Intronaut. It's two totally different vibes. So
for sure. Well, you've mentioned this before as well, but what are some of your bigger influences in terms of vocal styles?
I have quite a few. Probably the people who I think are the sickest with, like, a controlled type scream. I don't know if you know what I'm kind of going after with that, but, like, the more, like, lows and highs and whatever. Johnny Davey is, like, the sickest fucking vocalist out there. He's awesome. Demon Carcass, Derek Rydquist from The Faceless. Those are my, like, people who I still really respect as vocalists and as writers. I just think that they're really bomb. I love their voices. Jeff Fico, who was in The Faceless as well. But aside from this vocal style, I love Jacob Bannon, Anthony Green. Those kids in Code Orange, they have some sick, like a sick three-way vocal thing going on that I really think is tight.
Yeah.
There are a lot of vocalists. The vocalist, I don't know his name, but he's on Frederick Thorndahl's Special Defects album, Soul Niger Within. One of my favorite vocalists. The vocalist of Dimmu is a huge influence. There are a ton.
That's awesome. I just recently saw, you mentioned the Code Orange dudes. They're playing with somebody that didn't click for me. I was just like, wait, what? Do you know? I know they announced it recently, and it just didn't make sense.
Is it something that they're about to play?
Yeah, it's a tour they're about to go on with somebody, and it just, to me, doesn't make sense.
System of a Down? Is that it?
Oh, yeah. There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy. It doesn't really make sense, but it's like, it's a very hopeful thing. It's pretty fucking cool that a band like System of a Down, who's like had mainstream success and is that huge, is kind of like still checking out bands who are not as well known, who are more underground, if you will. Even though Code Orange is getting a lot of steam lately, that's just a really cool thing to me. Really, right?
Yeah, no, that is cool. I'm happy for them. And I mean, I'm going to assume that the System of a Down shows are still going to be sold out giant affairs. You know, it's not going to be, even though they've been gone for a while, I'm sure the fans are still there. You know? Yeah,
I'm sure that just adds to it. You know, sometimes when a band will go, look at Tool. I mean, it's been like a decade since they've made an album, and they can sell out a show in an instant. And the minute that they announce their next album, 100,000 people or however many will purchase it. There's kind of a thing to bands going away and coming back. And
well, yeah, that happened to Refused.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess that's what my band's doing right now. we'll
You're going
disappear
on that
for a few years.
Hiatus where you just blow up and you come back and you're playing like sold out stadiums.
There you go. Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
Last thing I had was, do you have any hobbies outside of music? I mean, I'm pretty sure being in a professional touring act and writing new albums and stuff, you don't have much time, especially with a day job. But is there something you enjoy doing, like video games, comic books, or movies?
I do a lot of pyrography, which is like wood burning. So I really like, drawing on wood and burning it out, just drawing, period. Okay. I write a lot. So it's all kind of like artistically centered. But yeah, I really enjoy doing that stuff.
When you say writing, like novelizations, poems?
More poems, and most of the things that I do write can be translated into lyrics.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of poetry type stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, do you explore the realms of writing other things though? Like, that's something that after the band took a break, I've been focusing on, is like writing comedy, writing for the podcast as well, just questions and trying to keep it interesting, but mostly writing comedy and stuff like that has been really refreshing. So I don't know if you've thought of...
That's really cool. No, I haven't like gone into comedy or anything like that. I've written some short stories and nothing longer, but yeah, mostly just poems, basically. Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, I appreciate you taking your time to talk to me today.
Yeah, thanks for taking your time to talk to me.
Yeah, no problem. When do you have a new... I know you're writing a new album. Is there a date or anything you want to... or a time frame for the new album?
We're definitely going to put it out by the end of the year. I think I said this before, but I literally go in the studio tomorrow. Everything is pretty much done except for vocals, so... Hopefully we have some news on that in the next couple of months, but nothing set in stone yet.
Very cool. And then I'm assuming extensive touring to promote the album and all that?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. We're going to be touring the hell out of this album. And we put on an album like a year ago as of tomorrow, and we kind of plan on taking this next cycle, making it a bit longer. So yeah, it'll be pretty extensive.
Cool. Social media stuff, Entheos Band?
Yeah, I think it's facebook.com/Entheos Band, Entheos Band or Entheos Official on Instagram. Type Entheos into Google. That's the easiest way. We have everything. We have Twitter. I just can't remember the handle. I think it's Entheos Official. Yeah.
This is something that's probably easily Googleable.
Yeah.
But what is the Entheos? What does that mean? Or where does that come from?
The technical, it's like the root word for enthusiasm. The technical meaning is full of God.
Okay,
we're not
awesome.
We're not a Christian band. We're not a religious band or anything. We just really liked the name.
Yeah, I mean, well, the word God could be misconstrued very easily for religion, but it's very open. if it was like full of Jesus, then yeah, that'd be
right. Very well. It is a really open thing, but I do find that sometimes people take things a little more literally than intended. So yeah.
Sure. Cool. Well, thank you very much once again. Please check out the band, guys. Keep an eye out for the new album and the tour.
Yes.
And hopefully, next time you're in LA area playing a show, we can hang out.
Absolutely, man. We'll have a beer. It'll be fun.
All right. Well, take care and cheers.
You too. Cheers, man.